Do you have a goal to declutter your home or maybe parts of your home here in 2025? If so, you do not want to miss this training. I'm going to be sharing with you a 5 step process that you can set up to help you guide your journey of decluttering your entire home. Well, hey there. Welcome back to Work Life Harmony. A few years ago, I had to basically declutter my entire home. We were doing a large remodel and we had to pack up every single room in our house except for one and get it all put into pods. So essentially, it was as if we were prepping to move. And if you've ever had a large move, you know it takes a lot and you literally need to sort through everything, right? Closets, cabinets, all of that. So I want to talk you through the process I used and I continue to coach and support others in this as well. Now, before we dive in, I really want you to understand anytime you're tackling a large decluttering project, meaning you're going through the belongings in your home, in your space, your workspace, etc. There's really two aspects to this, all right? There's the practical, structured, pragmatic approach to physically getting this done. And that's what I'm going to be sharing here today. But, friends, it's important to recognize there's also a lot of mental stuff at play here. It can feel overwhelming. If you're someone that has a hard time letting go of things, right? This is going to be challenging. If you are someone that maybe, has acquired more clutter than you desire, there's a lot more at play here. Now, I'm not going to be tackling the mental side of this today. If you need support in that area, my recommended resource, the expert I personally use, is Katie Wells. And I would encourage you to tune into her podcast called The Maximized Minimalist. She is my go-to resource. I've even got a link for you here in the show notes where you can join one of her upcoming events. So again, I'm not going to be tackling that today, but I just want to give you a step-by-step structured approach that I've seen work for so many women in my program. All right, I'm going to break it down into 5 steps for you. All right, so step one is before you even start going through this process of decluttering and reorganizing, is I really want you to take an honest look at what you have going on in your life right now and decide for yourself how much time realistically can you spend on this each week. All right. And I start here because I need you to do this before you jump into the project. Because if you don't take this assessment of how much time you can honestly spend on it and you just jump in, you may be feeling like you're not making any progress and it can be hard to get momentum. So, for example, you may look at the realities of your life and realize, okay, with everything you have going on right now, realistically, maybe you could spend 3 hours a week. You're looking at your calendar and realizing your weeks are pretty full, but hey, maybe you could knock out 3 hours on any given weekend, right? And you may be someone that, chooses to break it up into small 30-minute chunks of time. You may be someone that likes to just sit down and spend, a couple hours all at once. And when we get to step three, we'll talk about that a little bit more. All right. So step one is deciding how much time do you desire to spend on it each week, and actually write that down. This is the amount of time that I'm going to spend each week. Now, the second step is kind of your prep work. All right. And here's what you're going to do. I want you to grab either a piece of paper, maybe an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet, or if you are a student of mine and you love using Trello, pull this up and create a new Trello board for yourself. And what you're going to do is you're going to walk through the space, like let's say you're doing your entire home. You're going to walk through your home room by room, and you're going to write down every space that needs to be decluttered. Now, let me explain this in more detail here. If I were to walk into my office right now, it would look like, looking around my office, it's just a big open room with a desk on it. So we might be tempted to just write down declutter the office. But I want you to dig into, do you have drawers, cabinets, shelves? All right. So when I look at my office, I would actually break this down into one, two, three spaces of decluttering in here. I would write down, I have like a standalone bookshelf where all of my books are stored. So I would write down, office bookshelf. Then I would write down office desk. I have lots of drawers here in my desk. Then I would write down office cabinets. All right, notice I am tackling each like physical space in my office. Now, if I were to walk into a bedroom, let's say I was walking into our guest room, I would notice in there I have bookshelves. So I would write down guest room bookshelves, and I would also write down guest room closet. All right, notice I'm not just saying the guest room. Closets and cabinets are where things are the trickiest, right? Because you could walk into a bedroom and look around and go, "Hey, I've got a dresser, a nightstand, a bed. Like, there's nothing to declutter here." But where does all that stuff get stored, right? It's typically behind a closed door of some sort, whether it's a cabinet or a door. And so I like treating each one of those separate. Now, when it comes to the kitchen, this is a little trickier because if you're like, we have a kitchen right now that has a lot of cabinets. I would not write down every single cabinet, but I would do it in categories. So, for example, I might write down kitchen, pots and pans cabinet, kitchen, all of our, plates, bowls, cups, that section of the kitchen cabinets. Then I might write down kitchen, Tupperware and baking supplies, right? However you have yours organized. So the way our cabinets are laid out, I would actually divide that up into four different spaces, chunks of cabinets that I would be decluttering. And then the pantry would get its own element there. So you get what I'm after here. This is going to be your prep work of actually writing down all the spaces in your home that need to be decluttered and essentially reorganized. Okay. Now we're going to move on to step 3. So we've identified how much time we want to spend on this each week. And then we've made the list of every space in our home that needs to be decluttered and reorganized. Now, what you're going to do, and this is where the actual system starts coming into place. So, our prep work is step 1 and 2. Now, what you're going to do is every single week, as you sit down to plan your week, all right, yes, I'm assuming here that you are doing some sort of weekly planning. That's at the heart of everything that I teach. I want you to look at your calendar, look at the realities of everything you're juggling this week, and then you're going to create the appointment. Actually plug in. If you're using a Google Calendar, you're going to create the event on your calendar, the specific date and time, and how long you're going to be doing it. And you're going to write down which space you're going to be tackling during that window. All right. And if you decided back on step 1, let's say you decided I'm going to spend 3 hours over each week doing this, I would now decide for myself, would I rather do this in, 30-minute chunks, taking breaks in between? Or am I someone that works better just going, I'm going to go all in and do this? I know for myself, I would, and it's kind of what I did when we were decluttering or prepping to move and packing everything up. I work better in longer chunks of time with that. So I created 2 90-minute appointments on my calendar each week. And I would write down, okay, Saturday, maybe from 9 to 10:30 in the morning, my goal was to tackle, the guest room closet and the guest room bookshelves. And I would create that appointment for myself, listing out specifically which rooms or, spaces I was going to declutter during that time. Now, if you are coordinating this with other people you live with, if this is a family affair or you and your significant other, you want to do this planning part together, right? So just recently, we went through this process with kind of transitioning a room in our house that had been my daughter's playroom into now like a family shared craft room / music room space. Well, I was going to need to get involvement from my daughter in particular when we were going through this stuff to figure out what we're keeping, what we're not. I know she does not work well in 90-minute chunks of time. 30 minutes was going to be best. So we would discuss together ahead of time what time of day I needed her in there and would tell her, we are doing this together for 30 minutes. All right, but get that appointment down. Now, why ahead of time am I having you decide what space? Well, here's what's going to happen if you don't. You're going to probably end up wasting 10, 15, maybe even more minutes of time wandering around going, "Ugh, what do I feel like doing?" This is why we decide ahead of time. We need to reduce the amount of decisions prior to the decluttering because you're going to need all your decision making energy for that, right? Because you're going to be making choices about your belongings. So, this is why I like to reduce any of the decisions outside of the decluttering process. All right. So, that's step 3 is actually creating the appointment. So, we've done step 1, how much time each week. Step 2, you've made that list. Now, step 3, each week, you're going to create the appointment with yourself and write down which space you're going to be tackling. Now let's move into the execution here, which is step 4. You want to make sure prior to this process of going through all of this stuff that you have 3 bins, however you want this to be. It could be boxes, it could be bags, whatever. But you want to have 3 things ready on hand. A place to put the things you're going to donate. For me, that usually is in a trash bag. It could be a box. Then you want to have a place for trash. So always bring a trash bag with you. So stuff that needs to go straight into the trash will go there. When we were doing, cleaning out the old playroom, I mean, the amount of random half broken crayons and things like that that just needed to be thrown away. And then you want to have where you're going to put the things that you are going to keep to then, put back in an organized fashion, right? So have a place to put stuff for donation, trash, and keep. So that's step 4 is to make sure you have those 3 things clearly labeled. Now, the final step is this: scheduling time each month for a donation and or potential trip to the dump. Right? I know for me, it was unrealistic to know, okay, every single weekend I'll make a trip to where I'm donating things. So instead, we had a designated spot in our home where as I was working through my spaces each weekend, I would put the boxes and or bags that were going to be donated into a corner in one room in the house. And then once a month, we would load up the car and go make the donation trip. And that involved the entire family. I was like, I need help with all of this. So that was kind of that final step was now how do we get the stuff out of the house that we need to either donate or take to the dump? And I encourage people to do that on a monthly rhythm. So again, I'm going to recap here what this kind of 5-step process is. And guys, you can do this to tackle your whole house or even just one room in your house, right? I did this 5-step process when we were just doing this one room transformation. So step 1, how much time do you want to spend each week or can you spend each week on this? Step 2, listing out every single space that needs to be, gone through, tackled, decluttered, reorganized. Step 3, creating the appointments each week. Now, notice I'm not saying create your appointments for a month out, just 1 week at a time. Go plug in the appointment on your calendar for when you're doing it and what space you're going to be tackling. Then step 4 is have your 3, bins and or bags ready to roll. What are you donating? What's going in the trash? What are you keeping? And then step 5, schedule that time each month for your donation and or dump deliveries. Now, here's what's really fun by, that step 2 where we're listing out every single space is each week you get to go back to that list and cross off the stuff that you've already done. So you're going to be feeling that sense of progress and you'll be able to visually see it as you tackle something, especially if you're looking at doing something that involves your entire house, right? Realize that could be months of work for you. Now, what I've just mapped out for you guys is a great process that you can use, right? This is a process to help you declutter and reorganize your home. Now, keeping it that way involves repeatable systems. There is a difference between a one-time process and repeatable systems. Now, if you are looking for repeatable systems for keeping your home decluttered, maintained, and organized, again, I'm going to point you right back to my personal favorite resource, which is Katie Wells. I've had her here on the podcast before. We will put a link in the show notes to some previous episodes where she teaches something called the Daily Reset that has been transformational in our home. It is a true system that we use regularly. And she also has amazing resources to help you get your kids, if you have young kids living with you, as part of this process as well. So, again, we've got some amazing resources for Katie here in the show notes. Definitely go check her out because it's one thing to do that process, right? The one-time process, but the magic happens in the repeatable systems that are going to help you keep it that way. So if you have a friend, loved one, family member that has kind of a house declutter on their roadmap here for 2025, please make sure you share this episode with them to help them get launched. And as always, happy planning.